Hey there, and welcome to my latest landscape photography and wilderness adventure here in Tasmania. Today I'm up at Cradle Mountain. Well, I'm right on the fringe of the Cradle Mountain National Park. The boom gate that greets most people is just round the bend on this road here. Today I'm doing something a little bit different. I'm not actually going in through to the epic views of Cradle Mountain at Dove Lake. I'm actually just going to skirt round the edges of the park here and pick up a couple of other real cool little photography spots. Reason I want to do that is the mountain itself today is really overcast, so I don't think there's any panoramic views, and I just also wanted to show how easy it is and available it is to get some beautiful little pictures within a stone's throw of the accommodation, or one of the accommodations up here at Cradle. I have just arrived to my first little location here on the edge of Cradle Mountain Wilderness Park here, and this beautiful little waterfall has certainly grabbed my attention, and I'm just going to put myself into my little spot here. And the reason I chose this spot is to get a nice uninterrupted view of the waterfall in the background, but I'm also going to focus on either this rock here or this rock here in the distance as a bit of foreground interest. So just a few moments to set up and try and take this first image. So what I have actually decided to do is get down nice and low in this image, and what I'm trying to focus on primarily is the waterfall, but I'm also very interested in these beautiful coloured rocks laying underneath the surface of the water here. So just to talk you through this really quickly, I've got the camera on f/16 and I've taken it all the way down to 1 second with a circular polarizer on it, just to cut through the water and actually see these beautiful rocks. It is starting to rain, which is an awesome thing for waterfalls, to give long exposures, but it also means I'm going to get wet pretty shortly here. I've just taken one exposure as I've been talking, and I'm really happy with how that beautiful milky coloured waterfall is contrasting against all these colourful rocks here in the foreground. I have also managed to bring in these other rocks in the foreground as well, which add a little bit more interest, and straight away I'm already pleased with my first image of the afternoon here at Cradle Mountain. I've just stopped in at this other little location here, and there's this beautiful waterfall coming over the little cliff in the background here, and I think it has been a very worthy picture to take. What I have struggled with is, you probably can't tell from where I'm sitting, but it is in a very big amphitheatre, this waterfall. So when I go to the traditional spot where most people take their pictures, there is a real big lack of foreground. So I've just put myself down into the middle of this little river here and found a few interesting rocks which I'm sitting on and keeping my bum dry to add a little bit of definition and a little bit of interest to the foreground. I reckon I've got about 15 minutes left down in here before the rain starts to come, and just because I'm only 10 minutes off the side of the road here in Tasmania doesn't mean I'm going to get really wet, and I'm probably wearing the worst photography bushwalking clothes around, a pair of jeans and a flannel top, which means I'm very absorbent of any water at the moment. So a little bit of speed here. I've taken a couple of different exposures. What I have had to do is I've had to focus stack for this rock in the foreground, and I've also had to take an exposure for the other rock to the right hand side of the frame, and then also infinity, I've taken an exposure for the background there as well. And the reason I've had to do a focus stack is if I was to capture all of these elements with one single exposure, then they wouldn't be in focus to how I'd like them. I've also had to increase my shutter speed drastically, so I'm up around about 6 seconds, and the reason for that is something that's really nice here in Tasmania is the rich coloured water caused by the tannin, and when you get a waterfall or you've got a lot of disturbance in the water, you'll end up getting these beautiful little bubbles aerated across the surface, which make for a fantastic contrast against the back of the water, or a fantastic contrast against the black water underneath. So once again, I've put my circular polarizer on to cut through that water and to try and capture some of those bubbles, making some nice little swirling patterns, which I think will make a really good, interesting image. So for now, I'm just going to wander back to the vehicle, and hopefully I don't get too wet, and show you guys some more interesting photography here on the fringe of Cradle Mountain National Park tomorrow. Hey there, and welcome to day 2 of no visibility at Cradle Mountain National Park. There was rain forecast once again on the radar, which certainly didn't get my hopes up high. And I did go and check out a sunrise early this morning, but it was too foggy as expected. So like I said yesterday, I'm going to show you a couple of really cool little spots that you can grab up here at Cradle Mountain without traveling too far from the car or your accommodation. And today I'm just going to pick off this little waterfall, which is a very easy one to get to, and it's literally only a 2-minute walk from the car park. It's a pretty popular waterfall, as you're about to see, given its ease of access, and I'll give you guys a look and talk you through a picture I'm about to take. So I'm just going to set myself up on this little footbridge here. I don't want to get too adventurous and crawling down on this bank today. What I'm going to do is I'm going to crop in fairly tight on this waterfall and eliminate a lot of sky. To describe the sky today at best is bleak, so there's really not a lot of definition through cloud detail in the background to be gained from having a huge sky. So I'm going to set the camera up quite low, focusing on the fall itself, and frame it with these beautiful ancient king billies, which are on the left and the right hand side of this frame here. So I have just taken a couple of exposures here on this little footbridge, and the biggest challenge is actually waiting for a break in the traffic, because the vibration caused by the buses and some of the light trucks and vehicles coming over this bridge are interfering with the slow shutter speed, as you can imagine. I have just used one exposure here at 4 seconds at f16, and I'm already quite happy with these results. I've got some nice definition in this waterfall, and I've framed it with these beautiful king billies in the background, which I spoke about. And I think for now it's started to rain and it's starting to get quite heavy, so I might make my way up the back of this landscape and explore some ancient forest and try and grab a few more pictures before the rain truly sets in. So I have just positioned myself for what I believe will be my last picture for the day. You can't tell this at the moment very well, but it's actually raining quite well. It's been raining pretty steady all day, so all sorts of landscape photography out in the open has been very difficult. not just because you get your gear insanely wet up here, but also because there is no visibility. So by hiding in under all these trees, I can keep myself a little bit dry, and I can also capture some beautiful streams and some beautiful old trees with very little contrast against the sun. What I've done here is I've found this beautiful stand of old Tasmanian myrtles, which are a stunning old tree. Especially this time of year, they start to lose their little leaves, or some of their leaves, and they add a nice little bit of colour to the foreground, being red and yellow, depending on how far they've pulled themselves into autumn. So I've just set this camera up here. I've primarily shot this in a landscape orientation. I want to add a bit of line with this foreground through the middle of the frame heading up into the distance, and I want to try and highlight how these beautiful old trees are actually hanging over this stream like a canopy. So for camera settings, I'll just show you guys. I've got the camera set up on f8 at 11 seconds, and I've got a circular polarizer on as well, just to cut some of that glare from that overcast sky across the water. I'll just check my front lens, and no water droplets there, which is amazing. So I'll get a nice crisp picture, and here we go. And like I said, 8 seconds is ample time to get a beautiful milky stream in the foreground here. And my camera's just performing its noise reduction. And straight away, I'm really happy with these results. And I do feel that it might be my last image here on the edge of the Cradle Mountain National Park. It's starting to get dark, but there's probably half hour left of daylight for me to get back to the car. And if I don't shoot another picture on the way back out, then I look forward to seeing you on my next episode of landscape photography and wilderness adventure here in Tasmania.